Mic check. Is it live? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arizona Western College Anatomy and Physiology. Your professor, Dr. Sean Clavel, and we have made it. This is week 16 of the semester, the last week of the semester here. So we're going over the last couple of items here as I'm finishing up grading up your items. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold too, so please excuse my voice as it might seem a little bit congested. But let's get right into it here. The first thing I want to remind everybody is that Sunday, December 1st, is going to be the last day to complete any of those lab assignments, right? Lab assignments, any of those things that are pending or missing there. I want you guys to get that in and get as good a grade as you can here in this end of the semester. So getting those lab assignments is a big component of it. So December 1st, Sunday at midnight, the Sunday before finals starts. Those lab assignments will be due, so I encourage you guys to complete as many of those as you can. Get them done, get them up there into so I can grade them. I'm grading as all through the week, basically, and into the weekend, and then they'll turn around and I'll have the finals that I'll start grading after that. And we'll take a look at that, what you guys have scheduled for your final, particularly as it relates to my online class here. So December 1st, the last day to get those lab assignments in, Sunday at midnight. Speaking of the final exam, it is upon us, right? So the final exam will actually start here on Sunday. I'll put it up on Sunday. It'll close on Thursday for my online class. I put it on Sunday so that those individuals that need the weekend to take the exam, they can. It will be the two parts as we've had with plenty of those other exams. 150 points total. It's going to go over chapters 12, 13, and 14. The nervous system, right? And so the parts 1 and 2 will open on Sunday, sometime around in the afternoon. Give me some time to kind of work it over a little bit. I'll be working it over these next couple of days, but also up until Sunday. I'll make sure that everything's all set up there. But Sunday, the exam will open. It'll close on Thursday. I'll grade them over the weekend, and hopefully I'll have those grades in by about Monday, Tuesday. I know they're due by Wednesday, so I'll have to have them done fairly early here in the week. So the big thing there is that it will open on Sunday. It will close on Thursday. Remember that the nervous system encompasses 3 chapters: chapter 12, chapter 13, and chapter 14. Nervous tissue, the anatomy of the nervous system. Make it a little bit bigger for you guys. Maybe even bold it. The anatomy of the nervous tissue, the anatomy of the nervous system, and the somatic nervous system are all encompassed in there. When we talk about chapter 12, thinking about let me go over this part here. Let me go back here. Let me go over the format here real fast. So there'll be 50... Really? I didn't even know that was a thing. All right, let me put that back up there. So the first part of that exam is going to be multiple choice. You'll have 80 multiple choice questions. Each of those multiple choice questions is worth about it will be worth 1.25 points. That comes out to 100 points total there. So 120 minutes altogether will be allotted for that part of the exam. So 2 hours altogether, right? The second part of the exam is the practical, or the pictures. There's short answers. You'll be writing short answers, nothing too extensive, but a word or two to explain what is the concept there, with what part of the neuron, what part of the spinal cord, what part of the brain is associated there. So looking at those is going to be an important component. And so you'll have an hour and a half to complete that. And as it relates to those chapters, kind of think I jumped a slide there. Remember that chapter 12 includes the nervous tissue. So we're talking about the divisions of the nervous system, the central nervous system versus the peripheral nervous system, the functions of the nervous system, sensory integration and motor, the cells associated with the nervous system, neurons and neuroglia, so being able to identify the parts of a neuron as well as the different types of neuroglia, the action potential and resting membrane potential. The steps of an action potential are going to be important as well. And then finally, neurotransmitters, whether it's acetylcholine, glutamate, GABA, and glycine. Oh, that was too much for me there. Let's go to the next chapter here. So the next chapter 13, we're talking about the parts of the brain, right? The parts of the brain, the parts of the spinal cord. So being able to identify those different concepts as it relates to the different parts of the brain, both their structure, right? So if it's the precentral gyrus, but also known as the primary motor cortex. The postcentral gyrus is known as the primary sensory, somatosensory cortex. So knowing its structure, where is it located, how would you describe it anatomically, its location, but also knowing its functional area too. What is it responsible for? What does it do? Where do we get that? And then the same thing with the parts of the spinal cord, right? Like the posterior horn is responsible for what? What lies within the posterior horn? What lies within the anterior horn? Those concepts are going to be important to identify there as it relates to the anatomy of the nervous system. And then finally, in chapter 14, we're talking about the somatic nervous system. So there's a couple of things related to the special senses, so taste, smell, sight, balance, and hearing. And then the ascending and descending pathways. Ascending pathways are sensory pathways, so the dorsal column system and the lateral spinothalamic tract are the most important ones for you guys to remember. And then the descending pathways, the corticospinal tract, the lateral corticospinal tract particularly, is the one that you guys want to be familiar with. What is the pathways for in which it follows, right? It takes two neurons to go down. The descending pathway requires 2 neurons. The ascending pathway requires 3 neurons. And so what is the pathway? When do they, a term that you might also hear is decussation. When do they cross over, right? We might be familiar with the part that, the right side of the brain controls the left arm and leg, but where does that cross occur? Where does that crossover occur is going to be a big important concept to remember and to understand there. As well as this is ascending pathways, right? Sensory as well. It also crosses over. It's called contralateral control or contralateral sensing, right? The idea that it goes from the left side or the right side of the right side of your brain is responsible for the left side of your body and movements there. So again, 3 chapters: chapter 12, chapter 13, and chapter 14, all related here in the nervous system as it relates to anatomy and physiology. On our last test, the final here, which again is going to be 2 parts. You're going to have the traditional open, the traditional multiple choice questions that you'll have. Each of these comes with about, so when I'm looking at it, it's 80 questions, 30 questions from chapter 12, 30 questions from chapter 13, and 20 questions from chapter 14. So pretty straightforward there in terms of the number that you'll get. Nothing out of the ordinary. Those will be 80 questions on the multiple choice, and then in the practical component, you'll have 50 questions. Again, big parts of this are going to be being able to identify the parts of the brain, whether it's the functional or the structural parts of the brain, the parts of a neuron, the different types of neuroglia, and then ultimately the parts of the spinal cord as well. So being able to be familiar with those types of concepts. And then finally, I guess I'll leave you with this part here. If you guys can be familiar with one of my favorite drawings here. Let's see. It's not it. Go back a little bit. And it's this picture right here, right? There's a lot of concepts related to this picture here. So again, we can see things like, I'll describe things here, right? So we've got that sensory neuron, or the afferent neuron here. So there's the afferent neuron that's traveling from the periphery towards the central nervous system. Look, there's the cell body of the sensory neuron, which is a unipolar neuron. Its structure is a unipolar neuron with its cell body located in the periphery called the dorsal root ganglion, and then it travels in through the dorsal root, right? And so, as I mentioned here, what's located within the posterior horn? Well, in the posterior horn, you've got the cell bodies of interneurons, right? So you've got the axon of the sensory neuron traveling into the spinal cord, and that's where it meets that sensory neuron, right? That's where it meets the cell body of an interneuron. And so again, there's the interneuron. Interneurons are primarily multipolar. They then take information, travel. They stay within the central nervous system. That's a big concept there, right? These interneurons stay within the central nervous system. Then they travel. They send signals here. This is to the anterior horn. In the anterior horn, we have the cell bodies of the motor neuron, the somatic motor neuron here. And so what happens is that the somatic motor neuron travels out of the ventral horn and travels out of the periphery into the, in this case, the skeletal muscle, or the effector in this case, right? The somatic motor neuron, again, is primarily a multipolar neuron. So being familiar with the structure of these types of neurons as well, and then being able to identify them. Again, is continuing on to the spinal cord here. You can see that the gray matter of the spinal cord is in the middle. The white matter is on the outside here. And so being familiar with all the different topics or the different points that are being created here with this single drawing is going to be helpful. It's going to get you quite a bit through this the test here. So being able to explain this in as many different ways as possible is going to be helpful, and I encourage you to do so. Practice that over the next week or so as the exam starts to come closer, draw near. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last time I'll be broadcasting these announcements here for my fall semester. And so with that, I wish you guys the very best. It's been a wonderful semester here. You guys, I want to congratulate you on making it this far, finishing out the semester strong. Just one more test. Get your let me see if I can't get your lab assignments, get all of that work that's in there, get it in as soon as possible, right? Get it in hopefully before the Thanksgiving. But if not, again, by the weekend here, try and get that done, get that grade as good as possible so that we can help you excel throughout this semester and finish off strong here. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to be your professor. I wish you the best. I look forward to all your responses here as we move on into the end of the semester. Have a happy holiday and take care. Thank you.